Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the glamorous yet competitive world of Los Angeles fashion, where family connections battle with personal goals and old scars never fully heal, Will Spencer found himself at the center of an unexpected storm. After the nightmare that was Luna Nozawa, the young heir to the Spencer empire had finally began to settle into a normal routine. Months had passed since her tumultuous reign of terror came to an abrupt end on a rain-slicked highway, leaving a trail of trauma, unanswered questions, and a collective sigh of relief from practically everyone who recognized her name. Will had poured himself into his internship at Forrester Creations, putting his all into sketches and designs alongside his girlfriend, Electra Forrester. Their friendship, established in the aftermath of betrayal and dishonesty, had grown into something genuine, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise chaotic life. Will's days were filled with the hum of sewing machines, Ridge Forrester's pointed critiques, and brief moments with Electra in the design room. She was his anchor, the only person who understood the scars Luna had left behind without passing judgment on him. He had been drugged, tricked, and violated in ways that no one should ever have to go through, yet Electra stood by him fiercely and unwaveringly. They imagined a future together, perhaps even starting their own line someday, away from the shadows of their famous families. Will's larger-than-life father, Bill Spencer, remarried Katie Logan in a hectic ceremony that also celebrated Hope and Liam's wedding. The Spencers felt complete again, or as whole as they could be in their world of constant drama. But on this routine afternoon in mid-December, when snow flurries, unusual for Los Angeles, dusted the windows of the Forrester home, everything changed. Will was alone in his room at the Spencer estate, looking through his phone after a hard day of work. His internship was going well, and Ridge had even commended one of his bold new ideas for the forthcoming spring collection. Electra had texted him earlier, teasing about their plans for supper at Il Giardino, a place with sad past that they were determined to recapture for themselves. His phone rang with a notification, an anonymous message from an unknown number. There is no sender name or context, only one image attachment. Will's heart skipped a beat as he tapped to unlock it. The photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, displaying something that chilled his blood. He immediately recognized the close-up of a delicate gold necklace. The pendant was a small, ornate locket shaped like a heart and etched with his initials, WS. But that wasn't what kept him frozen in place. The high-resolution shot revealed a tiny ultrasound image inside the open locket. Will's breath froze in his throat as he looked at a blurry black-and-white printout of a fetus only a few months old, with a thin label at the bottom, 12 weeks. His hands trembled as he zoomed in, confirming what his mind begged to contradict. This was not a random prank. He remembered the jewelry clearly. Luna had worn it the night she drugged him and planned everything in that terrible guest house. She had said things in his ear, which he could only piece together later using flashes of memory and proof. And now for this photograph. Someone was bringing him proof that Luna's crazy statements before her death weren't all lies. She'd been pregnant. His child. The possibility struck him like a freight train. He dropped the phone on the bed and stared at the ceiling as memories returned. Luna's maniacal laughter during prison visits, her comments about our family, and the way she stared at his photo behind bars, vowing never to lose him. Everyone assumed her pregnancy claims were just another ruse, a final twist of the knife before she escaped into traffic. But the ultrasound, it appeared real, dated a few weeks before her death. And the necklace. How could anybody else have it? Will's mind raced with ideas. Was Luna alive? Faking her death had been done before in their circles, and Sheila Carter was the queen of it. Or had someone retrieved her stuff from the accident scene? The authorities closed the investigation fast, eager to end the serial murder narrative. But now, this anonymous sender was dangling the truth in front of him like bait. He took up the phone again, his fingers hanging near the respond button. She never lied about everything. Your legacy lives on. More to come if you don't play nice. Will's face drained of color. Speechless did not begin to describe it. His mouth opened, but no words emerged. He felt the room swirl as the walls close in. That someone had discreetly sent him was more than a photo or a necklace. It was a bomb that detonated smack in the middle of his meticulously rebuilt life. A child. Could his child be carried to term in secret? Or was it lost in the crash? The ambiguity was torment. Panic set in. He remembered Electra, how she had forgiven him for the lies he kept that night, and how she had pledged to be by his side no matter what. But this? A baby from his darkest nightmare? It would shatter her. His parents are Bill and Katie, who have recently remarried and are establishing a new fashion company to compete with Forrester's. Bill had given Katie her own house, hoping to entice Will away from the Forresters. If this got out, it would devastate everything. Will paced the room and ran his hands through his hair. Who was behind this? Is Luna's mother, Poppy Nozawa, mourning and unstable? Or someone closer, likely Finnegan, who had her own complicated relationship with the Nozawas? Perhaps a copycat, someone who learned the specifics via tabloid leaks. The mocking tone reminded him too much of Luna herself, secret messages and photographs intended to punish. He could not tell anyone. Not yet. His father would go nuclear, hiring detectives and make the situation public. His mother would worry herself ill. Electra? God. Electra deserved the truth, but how could he do this to her? They were finally happy. Will sat in silence throughout the evening, staring at the image. The ultrasound blob that could represent his flesh and blood. Yes, I am speechless, but I am also afraid. This covert sender has just reopened a wound that he thought was healed. And whatever more to come meant, Will knew his life was about to fall apart again. Will attempted to act normally the following day at Forrester Creations. He smiled at Electra across the design table, but his gaze remained distant. She noticed right away, her brow furrowing as she drew a gown inspired by their common aspirations. "Hey, are you okay?" she inquired during a break, softly caressing his arm. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Will tried to laugh, but it came out flat. Just tired. Late night thinking about work stuff. She didn't believe it, but she let it go, moving in for a kiss. As their lips connected, Will's phone vibrated in his pocket. He ignored it, but the fear grew. He sensed there was another message. Later, alone in the break room, he checked. A new photo of the same necklace, but now on a hospital bracelet. Luna's name is slightly discernible. And a text. Daddy's little secret. Tell no one or everyone knows. Will collapsed against the wall, wordless yet again. The sender was escalating. Blackmail? Revenge? Or worse, a claim on a possibly still-living child? That night's dinner with Electra was difficult. She raved about Bill's new fashion house, how Katie was scouting talent, and how it would entice Will away from Forrester. "It could be good for you," she added softly. "Away from all the family pressure here." Will hardly heard her. His thoughts were on the locket, the sonogram, and the threat. He nodded absently and picked at his supper. Electra set down her fork. "Will, talk to me. What's going on?" He opened his mouth, the words already on the tip of his tongue. "I received a message. Someone sent me proof of Luna's pregnancy. For real. And they have her necklace." However, nothing came out. He couldn't bother her with questions he didn't know the answers to. "I'm fine," he claimed. "Just stressed." She looked into his eyes, hurt blazing across her features. "You don't trust me anymore?" "Of course I do," he said quietly, hugging her close. But while he embraced her, his phone vibrated again. He didn't check, but he knew. The messages continued for several days. Anonymous sends a baby onesie to the Spencer mansion with no return address, monogrammed with Spencer Air. A distorted voice note whispers Luna's old taunts. Will stopped sleeping and jumped at every notification. He confided in no one and carried the weight alone. Bill saw his son's preoccupation at a family meal celebrating the new Spencer fashion house. "Kid, you've got that look. Like the world's on your shoulders. Talk to your old man." Will didn't answer. "It's nothing, Dad. Just adjusting to everything." Katie studied him intently, her maternal instincts taking over. "We're always there for you, sweetheart." But Will couldn't. Not until he discovered who was harassing him. The breaking point occurred one evening when Electra addressed him directly. They were enjoying the sunset from their beach house, where they occasionally escaped. She turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "I know something's wrong, Will. You've been distant, checking your phone constantly. If it's about Luna, if the past is haunting you again, let me help." He looked at her, the woman he loved, and the dam nearly burst. But another communication arrived, this time in the form of a video clip. Luna was seen clutching her stomach in grainy security film from a hospital months ago. Alive? Or was it pre-recorded? Will muted the phone, his face pale, speechless and paralyzed. Electra grasped his hand. "Please." Finally, in a scarcely audible whisper, he added, Someone sent me something. About Luna. Proof she was pregnant." Electra's eyes widened. "What?" He showed her the photographs and messages. As she browsed, her countenance changed from astonishment to terror to resolution. "Oh my God, Will. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to hurt you, or drag you into this madness again." She gave him a firm hug. "We're in this together. Always." But even as she said it, Will worried if they'd make it. The sender had promised more, and whatever this meant, a living child, a fraud, vengeance, it was far from ended. Will and Electra conducted a covert investigation over the next few weeks. They connected the number to a burner phone and the packages to untraceable locations. Whispers in LA suggested Luna sightings, but nothing concrete. Bill got involved quietly, using his skills to unearth medical documents confirming Luna's pregnancy, but the conclusion was classified as miscarriage after the accident. Was it falsified? Will remained plagued, with anonymous gifts including a tiny pair of booties and a DNA test kit with instructions. Each one left him dumbfounded and questioning everything. As Christmas came, the Spencer and Forrester families gathered for vacation, despite rising tensions between the rival fashion firms. Will put on a strong mask, but his heart was breaking. One night, alone, a last delivery arrived, the genuine necklace, hand-delivered to his porch. The locket contained not only the sonogram, but also a note in Luna's handwriting. "He's yours. Find him before it's too late." Will sank to his knees, completely stunned. A son? Alive? Hidden? The hidden sender had won this round, sending Will into a new abyss. His life, which had previously been on the mend, was now defined by this never-ending torment. And as the new year dawned, Will realized he had a choice: pursue the truth alone or risk everything by bringing his family into the darkness. But who was tugging the strings? And how much would Will be willing to spend to unearth it? The drama was only getting started, weaving through loyalties, deceit, and legacies in the harsh world of the bold and the beautiful. Will never anticipated the envelope to arrive in the manner that it did. It was not presented to him at work or placed into his suitcase at home. It appeared on his desk between meetings, plain white, with no return address and his name scrawled in precise block letters. At first, he believed it was another contract amendment or a legal remark, something normal and forgettable. But the weight seemed odd, heavier than paper alone should feel, and when he turned it over, he realized it hadn't been sealed with glue but had been folded with purposeful perfection, as if the sender wanted him to open it slowly. He waited for the workplace to settle down. When he eventually opened the envelope, a single photograph emerged, followed by a brief scribbled note. Will froze as soon as he recognized the image. It was old, taken years ago, and still startlingly clear. The colors were slightly faded, but the features remained vivid, trapped in a moment that was never meant to return. His breath hitched as memories he had long suppressed began to surface, memories linked to decisions he thought he had overcome. The note was concise and almost painfully so. There were no threats or charges, only one sentence written in the same precise handwriting. It did not explain why the sender had contacted you or what they wanted. Instead, it asked a question that pierced right through Will's equanimity. It inquired if he was ready to give the truth right now. Will stared at the words, his heart racing, understanding that someone out there knew far more about his background than they should. For years, Will had constructed his life around transparency, or at least the illusion of it. He took pride in his honesty and ability to address difficulties head-on. However, the truth depicted in that snapshot belonged to a different version of himself, a younger man who made a decision in a state of dread and perplexity. Back then, he thought silence was the safest option. The silence was now being challenged. Will struggled to concentrate as the day progressed. Every discussion felt remote, and every work was mechanical. He kept seeing the image in his head, the way the light fell on the scene, the expressions that told a story he'd wanted to forget. He wondered who could have taken the photograph, who had kept it for so long, and why they had decided to send it now. The timing seemed purposeful, even cruel. By the time he left the office, Will realized he couldn't ignore what had transpired. He carefully slipped the package inside his briefcase, as if it were fragile, and returned home with a lingering sense of dread. The streets of Los Angeles hummed around him, life going on as usual, utterly unconscious that his own world seemed off-kilter. Will sat alone at his kitchen table, the envelope spread open in front of him. He reread the note numerous times, hoping a fresh meaning would emerge. Instead, the phrases remained the same, simple yet deadly. He considered the individuals in his life who may be impacted if the truth came out, the trusting connections that might be strained by the disclosure. One name came up again in his thoughts, someone he cared greatly about, and who thought they understood him totally. The prospect of disappointing them stung more than the dread of public backlash. Will had always assumed that if you dug deep enough, the past would remain buried. Now he saw how fragile that conviction had been. That night, sleep came in brief, restless bursts. Every time he closed his eyes, parts of the past played out. He saw the decisions he'd made, the talks he avoided, and the pledges he'd broken to himself. By daybreak, he was fatigued but oddly resolute. Running from the truth had simply increased its force. The next day, Will resumed his silent investigation. He revisited old contacts, folks he hadn't spoken to in years, being careful not to reveal too much. Some conversations went nowhere, while others rekindled scars he never expected to feel again. Each conversation reinforced one thing: the secret had never been as safe as he had assumed. As the days went, the pressure increased. Will observed tiny changes around him. When he walked into a room, all conversations came to a stop. A glance would last a second too long. He wasn't sure if it was paranoia or if the secret was starting to spread. Uncertainty was almost worse than knowing. Will eventually understood that the sender might not be an adversary. The tone of the note was not malevolent. It was merely patient, as if the person on the other end was waiting for him to make the correct decision. That discovery upset him even more. Whoever it was known him well enough to see stillness as his biggest weakness. He recalled the moment the shot was taken. At the time, it seemed trivial, just another snapshot in a difficult moment of his life. He hadn't realized how much weight it would carry years later. The past seemed to choose its own time to return. Will made a decision one evening, after a hard day of avoiding and telling half-truths. He took the envelope out once more and placed it next to his phone. His hands trembled slightly as he weighed his choices. He might wait, allowing the sender to make the next move, or he could take control of the narrative for the first time. He thought about courage and what it truly meant. He recognized it wasn't the absence of fear that mattered, but rather the willingness to confront it. The reality he kept secret wasn't just a liability, it was a part of his narrative. Denying it had cost him more than he had previously disclosed. When he eventually contacted the person he trusted the most, his voice faltered. He did not show them the photo immediately away. Instead, he began with an apology, surprising even himself. Words came out slowly at first, then quickly, as if the dam had broken and there was no halting the flood. He didn't expect the reaction he received. There was shock and pain, but there was also understanding. The chat was hard but honest, and Will felt strangely relieved for the first time in years. Keeping the secret had been like bearing a weight he'd become accustomed to, forgetting how heavy it was. In the days that followed, Will recognized a change within himself. The terror did not disappear overnight, but it did reduce its grasp. He no longer jumped whenever his phone rang or the mail arrived. The photograph still existed, but it no longer held the same hold on him. Eventually, another message arrived. This time, it wasn't an envelope, but a simple text that confirmed Will's suspicions. The sender recognized his decision, remarking that truth, when confronted, had a way of making things right, even if the process was unpleasant. Will never learned why that person chose to intervene. Perhaps it was guilt. Perhaps there was concern. Perhaps it was simply time. What mattered was the result. The secret that had previously rendered him silent had led him to confront himself in ways he never would have done otherwise. Looking back, Will realized that the envelope had not been a threat. It had been an invitation, an offer to stop hiding, face his past, and go on without fear of being discovered. The truth had not ruined him. Rather, it molded him. Will carried the lesson with him as his life began to return to normal. Secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, inevitably surfaced. Facing them front on was the only way to truly be liberated. And, while the moment he opened that envelope will always be memorable, it no longer filled him with fear. It reminded him of the day he chose honesty over fear, and how that one decision altered everything.